He spoke after months of silence, a sudden, shaky admission that changed everything and yet answered almost nothing. If you want to follow this case closely, hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you get first-hand updates as new facts surface. One sentence summary: Rebecca's ex-husband breaks months of silence, sparking suspicion, public scrutiny, and investigative pressure as his words raise more questions than answers. Months of quiet ended when Rebecca's ex-husband finally spoke. For weeks, the case moved through headlines and social feeds with a frustrating void where a direct voice from the family should have been. Then, without fanfare, the ex-husband stepped forward and gave a statement that drew immediate attention. That break in silence carried enormous weight because, in investigations like this, the voice of someone closest to the family can offer concrete details, timelines, explanations for odd behavior, or corroboration for other witnesses. People expected clarity. Instead, they got a mixture of confession and avoidance. The timing meant that a narrative which had been building in the public domain suddenly had a new center. Now law enforcement had to absorb a fresh account, reconcile it with existing evidence, and decide how to proceed. For the community, it felt like the first real crack in a wall that had otherwise masked the truth. Yet the information he gave was partial. He disclosed some names, hinted at locations, and refused to answer several direct questions. That pattern forced investigators to treat his statement both as a document to be verified and as a potentially strategic move, something that could either open new investigative lines or muddy the waters further. The months of silence had allowed time for rumors to grow and for memories to fade. When someone finally speaks after that long pause, every word is examined for motive, timing, and reliability. Police are trained to treat such delayed statements carefully. They must determine whether the break in silence came from genuine remorse, fear, external pressure, a legal strategy, or an attempt to control the narrative. Each possibility carries different investigative meanings and different legal consequences. The fact that he had stayed silent for so long and then chose this particular moment to speak is itself evidence investigators must assess. His tone carried guilt, fear, and hesitation, and that raised doubts about honesty. Listeners picked up on the cadence of his voice, the pauses, the way he avoided specifics, the moments he looked down rather than meeting questions head-on. Tone alone is not proof of wrongdoing, but it is a human signal investigators and the public use to evaluate credibility. In many cases of serious family crises, people display a range of emotions that don't always match outsiders' expectations. Some freeze, some rage, some speak in a choked whisper. In this situation, however, the mixture of guilt and fear felt particularly telling because it was paired with evasiveness. He admitted to being tangled up in things he didn't want to explain, he apologized without naming actions, and he insisted on speaking only in limited formats. That combination suggested either a person struggling with remorse, someone too frightened to speak plainly, or someone carefully curating what to reveal. The hesitancy invited two immediate reactions: compassion from those who think trauma can scramble coherence, and suspicion from those who believe avoidance usually masks culpability. Investigators have to set aside gut reactions and test each emotional cue with objective tools, phone records, surveillance, forensic timelines, because subjective impressions can be misleading. Still, in the court of public opinion, tone is powerful. It shapes headlines, fuels social media threads, and can push witness testimony into the spotlight. The way he sounded, not just what he said, became a live piece of evidence that everyone wanted to interpret. That interpretation, right or wrong, changes pressure on investigators and can influence how witnesses and acquaintances decide whether to come forward. The timing of his statement suggests possible strategy or external pressure. Speaking after months of silence is rarely random. It can be prompted by new legal counsel advising a carefully crafted statement, by investigators privately confronting someone with new evidence, or by outside pressures, family, friends, or threats, pushing a person to speak. Another possibility is media strategy, a carefully timed release intended to frame the narrative before a damaging leak occurs. All are plausible here. The moment he spoke coincided with increased media scrutiny and a steady drip of leaked details that had made social feeds buzz for days. That convergence raises the question, did he speak because he felt cornered, or did he speak to shape what came next? From an investigative standpoint, timing matters because it suggests motive. If someone speaks only after detectives obtain damaging evidence, that silence-then-speech pattern can indicate an attempt to control legal exposure. If someone speaks because of conscience or fear of what they know, that suggests a different investigative path, one which may be more likely to produce cooperation or leads. The community's reaction to the timing was immediate and intense. Some took the statement as a sign of cooperation at last. Others viewed it as a strategic move meant to appear helpful while revealing little. For detectives, the practical upshot is the same. Analyze why the statement came when it did, check whether it corresponds with newly obtained evidence, and assess whether the timing itself reveals external influence, for example, whether lawyers, relatives, or even a looming legal deadline triggered the break in silence. Public reaction was instantaneous and heated, with social media erupting in speculation. Within minutes of the ex-husband's remarks hitting the airwaves, hashtags trended and comment sections filled with competing narratives. Social platforms amplified fragments. Certain phrases were clipped and shared, emotional moments replayed, and interpretations multiplied. One common pattern in such high-profile cases is the parade of instant experts, users who read body language, others who parse a single sentence for hidden meaning, and some who build elaborate theories from lost context. That often creates two parallel realities, one where verified facts are examined methodically, and another where viral speculation spreads unchecked. This case saw both. Those who wanted a breakthrough applauded any sign of cooperation. Those who were already suspicious used the statement to reinforce their doubts. The immediacy of online reaction also created pressure on officials. Detectives received a flood of tips, some credible and many not. Journalists pursued new angles, and anonymous posters amplified rumors that complicated the investigative environment. In such a charged atmosphere, separating signal from noise becomes crucial. Tips based on speculation can lead police on wild chases, diverting time and resources from the most promising leads. Conversely, social media can help. A single user posting a dashcam clip or a forgotten camera capture could be the piece that moves a case forward. The challenge is to channel public energy toward constructive contributions, verifiable tips, witnesses willing to speak to police, and restraint in sharing unconfirmed material. Traditional media split between seeing a breakthrough and calling it a smokescreen. Mainstream outlets did what they always do: verify and report cautiously, but also highlight the most newsworthy elements. Some reporters and commentary pieces framed the ex-husband's remarks as the potential turning point, an insider finally speaking, perhaps handing investigators new leads. Others warned that this kind of staged or partial cooperation is a classic narrative technique used to deflect scrutiny. The split in media reaction matters for several reasons. First, it shapes public perception in different demographics. Local audiences might see it as a breakthrough, while national audiences receive a more skeptical read. Second, media framing influences how witnesses and potential informants think about coming forward. If they believe the person who spoke is likely cooperating, they might assume their information is redundant and stay silent. If they think it's a smokescreen, they may feel more urgency to share what they know. For investigators, media coverage is a two-edged sword. It can generate leads and pressure resources into action, but it can also contaminate testimony and shape false memories. The split in coverage reflects the complexity of modern reporting, balancing speed with accuracy, and it leaves the public to weigh competing narratives without always having access to the core evidence. Investigators must separate verifiable facts from rumor and ambiguity. That is the essential, unglamorous work that turns public drama into prosecutable cases. Every statement, including the ex-husband's, is a threat investigators must test. They will check cell tower pings against claimed locations, compare timestamps on receipts with alleged movements, and examine any physical evidence collected earlier for links to the new account. Digital forensics, phone records, message logs, social media metadata often provide the most objective confirmation of what was said. Investigators also re-interview witnesses in a controlled manner to see whether the new statement triggers fresh recollections or contradictions. Importantly, law enforcement has to do this without being swayed by social pressure. Viral theories are tempting but not always reliable. The goal is to build a chain of evidence that either supports the ex-husband's claims or undermines them. That means turning ephemeral elements like tone and timing into testable hypotheses. For example, if he claims to have been at a location at a specific time, investigators will produce a simple test. Did his phone register there? Did a camera capture a vehicle? Did a third party corroborate his presence? Each verification step reduces ambiguity and moves the case closer to clarity. Key details he avoided may be as important as what he revealed. In investigations, omission is often telling. The things someone refuses or fails to say create blind spots that investigators must illuminate. In this case, he left major questions unanswered. Exact movements during critical windows, explanations for contradicting earlier accounts, and clarity on who else might know crucial information. Those avoidances force detectives to probe why a person would withhold details. Was it fear of implicating himself? Was he protecting someone else? Was he following legal advice? Or did he genuinely not know what others expected him to know? Each unanswered question becomes a path for further inquiry. The public often sees omissions as suspicious because they look like deliberate gaps. Investigators treat them the same way but more methodically. They catalog omissions, then seek independent evidence to either fill them or show whether the omission is material to the crime. The art of detection is not just about what is said, but about what is not said and why. Silence may have allowed evidence to fade and suspects to manipulate narratives. The delay between the disappearance and the ex-husband's statement is not just a social detail, it has practical consequences. Time degrades physical evidence. Items are moved, witnesses' memories blur, cameras overwrite footage, and opportunities to capture perishable signals, like cents for K, 9 units, or fresh trace materials, diminish. That temporal erosion means investigators have to work harder to reconstruct events and may lack the physical confirmations that would otherwise make the case straightforward. Additionally, silence can be weaponized. When key individuals refuse to speak, others can shape the story in the public sphere. Leaks, selective disclosures, or coordinated narratives can take root. For anyone who wants to hide the truth, time is an ally. That is why detectives emphasize timeliness and why the community's patience and vigilance matter. Sustained public attention can make silence costly and encourage potential witnesses to come forward sooner rather than later. Competing theories include truth-telling, protective silence, or calculated deception. Each theory is plausible and each demands different investigative moves. If the ex-husband is finally telling the truth, his information should produce verifiable leads, corroborated timestamps, physical traces, and third-party confirmations. If his silence was protective, shielding someone else or himself from danger, investigators must explore coercive control, threats, or family dynamics that would explain protective behavior. If his actions are calculated deception, then inconsistencies should multiply under forensic scrutiny. Fabricated timelines, contradictory digital records, or suspicious movements will reveal themselves. Detectives rarely stop at one theory. They pursue all plausible explanations until evidence favors one narrative. That means exhaustive checks, forensic analyses of devices, re-examining prior statements for contradictions, and pursuing any new tips inspired by the statement. DetectiveMax emphasizes silence's consequences and urges continued pursuit of justice. Silence can be revealing, not because quiet people are always guilty, but because what is withheld often guides the investigation more than what is said. Detectives need public assistance, credible tips, overlooked footage, or someone willing to step forward and speak to authorities. The role of the community is not to convict in comment threads, but to provide information. Persistence, not panic, helps solve cases. Keep asking questions, keep sharing verified leads, and keep pressure on the system to follow up. The pursuit of justice depends on sustained attention, careful evidence gathering, and the willingness of witnesses to cross the silence that protects the truth. Takeaways. Silence can be as revealing as confession. Timing and motive matter as much as spoken words. Public scrutiny pressures investigators, but also fuels rumor. Omissions deserve as much scrutiny as admissions, and justice requires relentless attention and credible tips. If you have verified information about the nights and movements in question, or footage that could clarify timelines, contact local investigators. The next credible lead, not speculation, may be the thing that breaks this silence for good.